Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our webinar entitled How to Access Wisdom 24/7. Deb assures me she's got that covered, so no pressure, Deb, but that's coming this evening. When Deb and I decided to sort of put this webinar on, there was something else I think you'd come up with. You were saying something about talking to God or something. And then when I came to actually put it together, I was like, right, what's the title, Deb? What are we going for? And How to Access Wisdom 24/7 came out of your mouth. And it was off the back of Deb is doing something at the moment called the Love Experiment. If you haven't seen that, she's doing videos on her YouTube. And that was all about for quite a long time, one of the things I've heard Deb say on and off, here and there, many a time, is that love is always the answer. Doesn't matter what the question is, love is the answer. And this experiment was kind of born from that idea and looking at what is love and is it always the answer, like putting that to the test. Because I know one of the things Deb and I do on a regular basis is question what we're up to, look again at what we tell ourselves and other people is true. Never take our word for it, and we don't even take our word for it. We go looking, we play around, we're curious. And so the Love Experiment was born. And in the mix of that, we're not quite sure if this came first or the Love Experiment came first. Somewhere in the mix of that, Deb wrote a very beautiful piece of writing called Lift Yourself Up, which some of you may have already read, heard, or come across. However, it is a beautiful piece of writing. So I'm actually going to start the call with that and then hand over to Deb. So I'm going to read that out to you. I haven't memorized it yet, so I'm just going to read it off my phone. So lift yourself up. Moving into a higher state of consciousness will allow you sooner or later to get yourself or anyone else out of any challenge or trouble that it is possible to find yourself in. And you have the power within you to move inside of yourself in consciousness wherever and whenever you want to move. This is the way that life works for us all. Nobody is exempt from this. We all have the free will and the power to consciously move in our imagination to higher states within us, from the place of lack to where our desire is met, from fear to love. If you aren't familiar with the most potent power in existence, this could seem to be a pretty far-fetched thing to claim. I don't want you to take my word for it. I would much rather you tried it for yourself, as words don't teach, they only point. And I know that if you are prepared to give this a go, you will find for yourself in your own lived experience that it is indeed true, and then it will mean something to you. God's power is unlimited. You are made by and of this unlimited power. You have been given dominion over all things. I mean this literally, not as a metaphor or something symbolic. You are made by and of the unlimited power behind life. Unlimited means it has no limits. This is the power that is in you, that is you, and is working through you. Don't underestimate what is possible for you through God, the power within you. This is true of everyone. It's not only true of certain people. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to be good or do things right or be clever or rich or special in any way, or anything you feel you are not. If you're hearing this, you are alive and human, then it means you. You are made by and of God, the unlimited power that will get you out of any challenge or trouble. Whoever you are, wherever you are, and whatever your circumstances are, this power is yours to use right now. You don't have to wait or ask permission. It doesn't make any difference that as a human being, you have personal flaws and frailties, because it is the limitless power of God that does the work, not you. The work is done through you, not by you. The moving is more about moving out of the way to allow what you want and the love that wants to come in. All you need is an open enough mind to truly give this a go without holding back. I am not religious, and this isn't about religion. Religion doesn't own God. And if the word God isn't your word for the allness of everything, the most potent power in existence, then that's fine too. Look beyond the word and choose your own word. This will work for you if you are prepared to do it, and you can do it if you want to. This is how it works. When you have a desire for something you don't have, if you have a challenging situation or are in trouble, you get rid of what you don't want and get what you do want, or something even better, by moving from within, moving your state of consciousness. This is how all things come into form, through consciousness. Creation began with a move within God. This is how you make that move. You stop thinking of whatever it is you lack, whatever your challenge or trouble is. You stop thinking about it. You take your attention away from it and move your attention to God. You think about the limitless power behind life instead. You can't stop thinking of something by thinking you won't think about it. You must supplant it with another thought. You must give the new thought life. That's it. It really is that simple. This is all you have to do. And if you do it, I can promise you that whatever it was you were struggling with will begin to resolve itself. Your mind will clear and you will feel better. This will work on anything, however big or small. It can be to do with your health, your financial situation, any relationship you have, anything that is worrying you, absolutely anything that is going on in your world. Your only job is to stop thinking about it and think of what you know is true about God instead. Things like God is inconceivable love. God is omnipresent. God is wisdom. God has ways beyond finding out. God knows everything. Nothing is impossible with God. You don't even have to fully understand what all this means. No human mind can fully comprehend God. You just have to think about it until any and every thought about whatever was troubling you has gone. This is all that's yours to do. If you start to think about your troubles again, you have stopped thinking about God. So bring your mind back to your part of this equation. Don't keep looking back or checking in to see how things are going. That's not thinking of God. That's thinking about what you don't want. What you are doing here is taking your life-giving attention away from what you don't want and putting it onto a higher plane for as long as you can manage. If you can become so interested in what or who God is and the power within you that you forget everything else, even if just for a minute or two, when you do remember, you will likely be surprised to find that whatever it was you wanted gone has in fact gone, or at least looks totally different to you. The power has worked a miracle through you. If there is a person in your life who is bothering you, annoying or upsetting you, then you can change that too, without ever having to change the person. Simply think, I'm going to move to a higher state of consciousness concerning whoever the person is. Then stop thinking about them in any way whatsoever, good or bad, and think of God. You aren't trying to change the person's behavior. You aren't trying to change the person at all. You're doing the thing most people run away from. You're working in your own consciousness. with the most potent power in existence on changing yourself. This in turn will be a true gift to you both. It will do immense good. Both of you will be the better for it. And whatever the trouble was between you, it is likely to disappear without coming to a head and with everyone being happy with the outcome. You can do this as often as you want to. You need never be stuck in an undesired level of consciousness. What I have shared here is really simple and hugely effective, but it isn't always easy. If whatever's going on for you is scaring you, or you are worrying constantly about something, or really caught up in your thinking about it, if it seems very real to you, it could be difficult to take your mind off it. But if you can find a statement of truth that resonates with you, the more deeply the better, and keep repeating it in your mind as often as possible, it will work. I can tell you this from my own lived experience. I've experienced miracles with this. If your mind does wander, don't struggle or fight with it. Just gently keep coming back to what you know to be true. Don't try to work out what will happen, what the answer will be, or how it will happen. None of that is down to you. And thinking in that way isn't thinking about God and will likely slow down the result you want. The more efficiently you can do this, the quicker things will change for you. It really is enough that you want something different. Knowing that and then taking your mind off it is your part of the equation. Everything else is God's business. Leave the rest to God. You have asked and it has been given. Relax and know I am God.
Thank you, Beck. Thank you. So there's a few things that I want to share with you this evening, and that was definitely a great starting point, pointing towards the power that each and every one of us have within us to change things for ourselves, and to lift up our level of consciousness so that we can access something that when we were in a place that didn't feel so good, we couldn't access. And as Beck said that, I wrote that at the beginning pretty much of when I had this idea about the love experiment. And like she said, this has been something I can remember in the very, very first retreats that we were having many, many, many years ago, saying, now, what's the question? The answer is love. Now, what is the question? And so it's been something that I have always been interested in. And lately, when this idea about the love experiment came to me, I decided to just go all in and just really look at, okay, is that true? You've been saying that forever and ever and ever. And a thing that I say a lot as well is moving from fear to love, living from love, not fear. All of these things, it comes out of my mouth a lot, and then it's like, okay, what am I saying? What does that mean? What and actually looking at it. So for the love experiment, I just got really, really interested in the power of love to change everything for the better, however impossible that looks. Like when you look out at the world that we live in with all of the things going on, whether we look at our personal stuff, you know, whether we look at our own lives and we look at the people in our lives who are not doing what we think they should, who, you know, don't say the right things, don't do the right things, don't show up in the right way, whatever it is, or whether you're going far wider than that, much wider than that, and you look at the world at large, and you look at I mean, I haven't watched the news in I don't remember how long, but I'm sure you would only have to watch or listen to one news bulletin to find plenty of things going on in the world that it looks like they need to be different, they need to be changed, this needs to be fixed, whatever it is. So I was thinking, okay, is love powerful enough to do this? And for me personally, and if you've been around me very much, you probably know this. To me, the words God and love are interchangeable. It's kind of like, you know, you could use those words interchangeable. So if I'm saying God and it irritates you, just interchange it for love. If I'm saying love, I'm pointing towards the same power. That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. So that piece of writing came off the back of me having some stuff going on for myself and thinking, okay, is it possible to just look in the direction of love if something is really bothering me, if something's going wrong or something? Because when I came across the 3 principles, when I started on my spiritual journey and started looking in this direction, I was in a place where I was looking for something practical, something that worked on a Monday morning when my kids hadn't got up in time for school and were swearing at me and shouting at me because of things that hadn't gone right over the weekend, or, you know, when something, I hadn't got time to just be at that point. I'd got so much going on in my life. I hadn't got time for something that was just, you know, sweet and, you know, nice and whatever. It's like I've got lots of stuff going on in my life that I need something practical that's going to help me. And so if it isn't practical and isn't going to help, I'm not particularly interested. That can come later, like now potentially when my kids have all left home and I've got grandchildren and, you know, I've got a bit more time. But definitely at that particular time I hadn't. And this was the same, really. It's literally like, if I'm having a problem, I don't want something that just takes up my time but isn't practical when things are going wrong that are really upsetting me or bothering me, or, you know, I need an answer, I need this to be different, or whatever it is. I want something really, really practical. So that's kind of the love experiment, and that was where I was, right? This has got to be really practical. And one of the things that I have really seen, and this has come with knobs on, to be fair, since I've been looking in this direction, is when we look in a direction, when we ask, when we get honest, and that is a word I'm going to come back to, honest. It is amazing. The whole ask and we are given, that is so true. But it is most of the time, and I can see for me as well, most of the time we faff around with our asking. We don't just, we're not honest. We don't get honest about what's scaring us. And so for me, a part of this is actually saying, so this, as Beck said at the beginning, when we first had the idea for this webinar, when we were first talking about it, it was because I had started sharing quite openly that I talk to God all the time. I'd sort of kept it to myself for years, and, you know, alluded to it and shared it now and then, probably more than I realized. It probably come out of my mouth more than I realized, but I was really kind of being like, yeah, I just talk to God. And one of the things that I had realized in my talking to God was I needed to be honest. I needed to say to God, I'm really, really scared about this, and I think you're going to let me down. I don't think you're going to do this. I think this is too big. And even in the saying of those things, it's really fascinating, because in that piece of writing, that lift yourself up, when I was talking about the power that God is, what I really see is when I look in that direction, when I look in the direction of, or ask myself the question, what would it be like to just stand in the presence of unconditional love? What would that be like? And when we think of what that power is, and then I hear the truth coming out of my mind, yeah, this thing is really, really scaring me. What does God know about buying land? What does God, you know, he's omnipresent and he's everywhere and he has all power on all things. But really, if I haven't got enough money to buy this land, does God know anything about that? Really? You probably don't, do you, God? This is really scaring me that this isn't going to happen. And seeing that, noticing for me that I had held back with being honest in that way. And it looks like, if I'm talking to God, I can only talk about certain things, only ask certain questions, and definitely not be really honest about how I was feeling and how scared I was feeling. So that was one thing, being honest. And then as this progressed and the love experiment carried on, and I was really looking in this direction, we run programs, I make videos, we do all sorts of things, and words started coming out of my mouth. I started seeing other things and reading things and listening to things, and then words started coming out of my mouth, and 3 words came out of my mouth during the program, and afterwards I really stopped to think about those, what that meant, what they were. And those 3 words were lie-identity, my-identity, and God-entity. And I was talking about looking in this direction. I'd worked with a lot of clients and spoken to a lot of people who had insights, had seen stuff for themselves, things had changed for them, and then it felt like they'd maybe lost that. It had gone away. They hadn't got it anymore. Oh gosh, I saw this thing and now it's not there. What's going on there? So I was asking God questions about that. I was asking, how does that work? And how do we stay going in this direction? How do we stay looking in this direction? How do we not get distracted away and forget the insights that we've had, forget what's changed for us? How do we do that? And one of the things that really became clear to me was that the way that life works, we're all here having a human experience. And we know, I'm sure pretty much everybody in here is familiar with the 3 principles. And if you're not, and this isn't making sense, then please stick your hand up and I'll make it a little bit clearer. But basically, the principles are an explanation for how life works. And I learned about the fact that I was a thinker through coming across the principles, that I have thoughts, and that I don't have to believe every thought that I have. And I didn't realize that before. I thought if a thought landed in my head, it was true, and I needed to believe it. So coming across that was massive for me, to see the difference in that, to see the freedom in understanding the fact that I am a thinker, and the fact that I can think anything I like, and the fact that I don't, just because a thought is in my head doesn't mean I have to think it. And then it became obvious to me, or certainly one of the things where I got caught, was this idea, through understanding the principles, through understanding about thinking, through listening to other people speaking, potentially like you're listening to me here. I would listen to someone, hear something wise that they said, and then think, they must have it right. That's clearly working for them. They must have it right. So if I think something different, I've probably got it wrong. And sometimes I would have an insight and think, I know I've got that right. And then someone else would say something that didn't 100%, didn't quite match up. And I'd think, oh, well, maybe I've got this right and they've got that wrong. And then what I started to see through this idea of us being a human being having a spiritual experience, which the principles had pointed me to so beautifully. As human beings, there is definitely a oneness here. And I went into non-duality. I looked very deeply in that direction, looked about oneness, looked about how we are all connected, looked at all that. And so I kept kind of looking at this through a lens of oneness. And then I realized, as human beings, we are all different. We are all like aspects of this one thing. We're all slightly different aspects of it. And what happens when we watch other people and think, oh, maybe they've got it right, or even however we do it, however we come to this idea that there's one right way. And religion is a great example of that. If we go back to looking at how many arguments there are over the globe, you know, religion is one of the biggest things that we argue about. And each one of these religions are saying, I have found the right way, I'm right, either listen to me or I'll kill you, basically, in a nutshell. And it's like they had this idea that they're right. And what I saw around this human thing was, I don't think when you look at God, when you look at creation, when you look at love and how generous it is, when you look at the amount of plants and trees and the planets and the solar system and all of this lot, he's just going to say, yeah, one religion, guys, everybody be the same, please. It's just not, that's not his gig, that's not what he does. It's like, there's millions and millions and millions of aspects of all sorts of things. We're not carbon copies of each other. That's not what this is. And he's also really, God is also really, really, really big on this whole death and resurrection thing. You know, you only have to go through 1 year of the seasons and see, you know, rebirth, waking up, growing, flowering, coming to this brilliant thing, and then dying back and going and rebirth, coming back. You know, it's there to see plainly. That's the pattern, that's what this power does, it's who it is. So kind of then looking back at myself again, it's like I have free will, I have dominion in that piece of writing. I have dominion over everything. Human beings, we are like the pinnacle of creation. We are the highest creation. So we have dominion over all of these things. And that isn't to get big-headed and say we're better. It's just, you know, we have dominion over these things. We have this ability to be aware. We have consciousness. We can be aware. We can look at ourselves and know ourselves. We can do that. We have that ability. Along with that ability comes the free will to make mistakes. And we're going to do that. We are absolutely going to do that. And one of the mistakes that we can make, if we go back to this light entity, my identity, and God entity, is we can mistakenly create ourselves an identity, which I'm calling a light entity, and make up who we think we are by accident. And usually that comes through childhood, through being told, you're not good enough, you can't do that, you won't amount to anything. It can come from our own thinking when we try to do something and we fail. Oh, there you go, you're not good enough. Oh yeah, I wouldn't even try if I were you. It can come from a million places, but we get this idea, and the crux of this idea is rooted in fear or not enough. We believe and we take on the lie identity of there is not enough and I am not enough. And that is fear-based. That is the exact opposite of love, of truth, of what God is. It's the exact opposite of all of it. So we create this lie identity about ourselves and other people and God. And that's where it's kind of like, I'm frightened to ask, I'm frightened to do this, because we are believing a lie. And so from the lie identity, when we see the deep trouble that gets us into, and we've got to a place of being at our wits' end, when we have, you know, I mean, for me, it was being in an abusive relationship for over 20 years and just getting into a terrible state and thinking there's got to be more. And the next thing, when we start looking for help and looking in this direction, or self-help, the direction of that, we do something, then we create something which is slightly better than a lie identity. We move into a my identity. We decide things about ourselves that potentially can make us better. We think, no, I'm good enough. And people say, you know, oh yeah, you're absolutely good enough and you're beautiful and you're all of these things. And, you know, we think, yeah, I am. But it's still on our own steam. It's us deciding these things about ourselves. And then recently, when I was looking in the direction of love more and more and more, and looking in this direction, I realized that each and every one of us, we are different from before we were born. We are different. We are all aspects of the divine, all a slightly different aspect of the divine. And that was something that was gifted to us in our mother's wombs before we were ever here. That didn't, like, I'm watching, I have 4 grandchildren now, and I'm watching them, and I can see all of those they're slightly different people before they were, you know, from the minute they arrived, from the first time you see them, the way they move their hand, the way they cry, what they cry for, what they do, they're different people from the second that they were born. So that happened in the womb before they were ever here. And each and every one of us had what I am calling a God entity, our own personal identity that was God given, love given, before we were ever here. And to me, understanding that and knowing personally for each and every one of us what that is a game changer. Knowing who, again, because as I said, when I'm maybe listening to other people or looking to other people, or we do not get our God entity from what we do, what we have, or what other people say about us. And yet both our identity and our my-identity come from those things. And many of us have things that we have accidentally created an identity, got our identity from, our identity or our my identity. So mom, grandma, daughter, female, dad, granddad, son, male, rich, poor, fat, thin, 3 principles facilitator, business owner, social worker, nurse, surgeon, doctor, specialist. I've written a few of them down. Navy SEAL, alcoholic, drug addict, any kind of illness or disability that we describe ourselves, people pleaser, victim, bully. None of these things are our God entity. None of those things are. They are all identities that we believe about ourselves along the way and live from, and all of them are fear-based. What we get given from God, love, the power behind life, who we truly are, what we get given before we are ever here, is something before all of those things. And when we show up, it is a little bit like, if you think of a body, your body has millions and millions and millions and millions of cells, and no 2 cells are the exact same. No 2 are the same. They're like snowflakes. They're all unique. There are no 2 that are exactly the same. And each and every one of them has a very important job in your body. And we are like that in the body of oneness. There is only oneness here. We are like that in that body. We are a unique aspect of that oneness. We are unlike any other. We are a one-off, and we will only, this one-off will, you will only ever be that. Nobody else will ever be that. Only you will ever be that. And if we understand who we are, if we know what our God entity is, if we know what that is, and we know how to show up to life in that, and you can be like all of those things that I just described, all of them, you can be those things in your true God entity. You can bring it to a job you do, you can bring it to a vocation you can have, you can bring it to anything. But if you come from that space, knowing who you are, it will be like, I can see the reason that I used to listen to other people and watch other people and think I need to be like those was because I was looking for who I am. I was trying to work out who I was. I was trying to work that out, trying to be who I thought I should be. and then mistakenly believing these people that were doing things that I thought they looked successful or whatever it was. But if we are trying to, it would be like your heart trying to be your brain, or your heart trying to be your feet, or your feet trying to be your hands. I mean, actually, we can do that quite well if needs be. But it would be like a different part of our body trying to be something else. It will never do it as well as what we are actually, what we were created to be. So understanding that you can speak to, whether you call it God or not, I'm really not worried, because one of the things that I absolutely see about this is there are a million ways to speak about this. You do not have to speak about it in those, I like to speak about it in those terms. You absolutely don't have to. You can talk about it in as aspects of your mind. You can talk about it in any way that you like. But we can communicate, directly communicate with this energy, this power that we have within us. We can speak to it and it answers. It's not mute, it's not dumb, it's not ignorant. It answers. We are being guided all of the time, and we can follow that guidance. So we can learn about our God entity, we can learn about who we are. And then if we come back to the love experiment, it's seeing the opposite to love is fear. We might think it's hate, but the opposite to love is fear. And we live in duality, so everything can be put under the heading of either love or fear too. There are two things in an experience of duality. There are two things. So everything can come under the heading of either love or fear. And when we start to know that for ourselves and to see, and only you can know, because the exact same thing, it's not about you can see that two people can do the same thing and have a very different result, because it's not doing, it's being that is important. It is before the doing. It is, are you coming from love or fear? If you do something and it's coming from fear, it will have a very different outcome if you do the exact same thing coming from love. So it's really good to know yourself. It's not a mistake that one of the deepest spiritual teachings is know yourself. Learn to know for yourself. Learn to know within yourself. Is this love or fear? And this loops back round to the place when I was talking about honesty, because human beings are not very good at being honest. It's not that we're liars as such. It is just that we are not very good at being honest. And very often, if you initially ask the question, what are you afraid of? A lot of people will say, oh, nothing, nothing. And it doesn't take long to be in a conversation with someone to hear things that they say and pick up on what they're afraid of. And very often we don't know these things because we haven't been honest with ourselves about this. We haven't looked at it and seen that we're afraid. And seeing, so very often, another thing that I realized for looking in the direction of love and the love experiment, one of the other things that I realized was, you would think that human beings would come together and unite in love. And I think very often, I know our community is very good at coming together in beautiful energy and very good at dropping into a space of love within us, moving away from our busy thinking. And I think definitely an understanding of the principles, and that is incredibly helpful in that scenario. But most human beings, most of the time, we live in fear, and it is much easier most of the time to unite around fear than it is love. Like if we here in this room, if I was to talk about love and what love is like, very often when we have been in difficult situations or things are difficult for us or we are struggling with something, we can sometimes lose our bearings about what love, what unconditional love, what God, what that actually is. We can be so far away from that that it can be difficult to know that. But the minute we say, okay, what are you scared of? And then start talking about things like, are you scared that you haven't got enough money? Are you scared that you haven't got enough time, that you're going to run out of time? You want to do something and you've got to this point in your life. You're scared there's not enough time. Are you scared that there's not enough love? Are you scared that things aren't going to work out for you? Are you scared that things aren't going to work out for the people that you love? If we start looking at our fears very, very quickly, we begin to see that we all, I think it was Byron Katie many, many years ago, I heard her talking about there are no new problems, no new thoughts, it's all recycled, and it's the same. All of our fears are all recycled. We all understand that. If somebody says, oh, I'm scared about this happening this week, all of us, even if we haven't had that exact same thing, we know what it is like to feel afraid. We know what that is like. There is nobody here who does not know what it is like to feel afraid. We know that. We know it. We are very familiar with it. We know it. We understand it. And so seeing that, moving from that fear to a space of love, and a part of it is acknowledging that, being honest about our fears. Now, when we are honest about what we fear, when we are honest about our fears, in the moment when I spoke about talking to God, in the moments when we speak to God, in those moments, for a minute, when I speak my fears out loud, for a minute, they've gone. I've emptied them out just for a small amount of time. And then in that moment, when we are empty, and this is what happens in the piece of writing, the Lift Yourself Up, when we look in the direction of love, when we look in the direction of God, when we are honest, it empties, we empty. When we say these things, just for a moment, that fear has gone from us. And if in that moment, when we are in that space of being empty, if we speak to this power that we have within us, if we speak to God, ask God, who do you see me as? Who do you think I am? You will be amazed. I've started playing around with this. I've done it a lot myself, lots and lots myself. And I've started playing around with a few other people, and it will blow your mind what will come if you do this. It will blow your mind what will come into your mind, what words will just fall into your mind when you do this. Because your God entity is something that you can receive in that way. You can hear it within you. You can hear it said within you. And as much as we've picked up this identity that says, there's not enough, you're not good enough, all of those kinds of things, which we all believe about ourselves in some way, shape or form, that we all take on in some way, shape or form. And one of the ways that you can see if you are living with those kinds of things is just listen to your own conversations over the next 2 or 3 days and just see how long it takes you to say something like, yeah, I haven't got enough money for that. Oh, I'd love to do that, but I haven't got enough time. Oh yeah, that'd be great, but there's not enough. Just those 2 words, not enough. Watch yourself and see how long it takes you till you say those 2 words, not enough, in some way, shape or form. And if you say those words, you know that you are coming from fear, from lack, from disconnection. And once we are there, we need to bring ourselves back to love, because not enough which pretty much most of us swim in. It's a worldview we swim in. What that gives away when you use those words, when you hear yourself say those, what that gives away is, if you look at love and fear, those two things, I've got a list of words that we could put under those words. And if we are fear-based, we live in a world of separation. If we are love-based, we live in a world of connection. And if we go back again to talking about oneness, one body, if we just think about this body, our human body, that body is a collection of many, 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 many cells. If one or two of the cells in our body starts to live from fear, starts to forget its true God entity, starts to forget who it is, it moves from being a cell that is part of a whole bunch of cells which work perfectly well together, a healthy living body. If it moves from that, it moves to separation, it moves to not enough, it moves to fear. When it is fearful and thinks there is not enough, a cell in your body, that is the definition of what cancer is. A cell in your body now thinks there's not enough, thinks it's alone, thinks it's separate, thinks it's not part of one whole, and so it starts to self-protect and harm what's around it, because it is the same. Like if we have the idea there's not enough money, so I've got to do something now that goes against who I truly am to make sure I have enough money. And even if it's on a small scale of, oh yeah, I want it, I really do love you, but I actually need it first, we have started to separate. And if the cells of our body do that, they become separate. They kill themselves, and by killing themselves, they kill the whole lot. And it's the same as human beings. If we move to a place of fear and separation, we are slowly killing ourselves. Whereas if we come back together to love, and it's quite a big jump, and in many ways quite a difficult jump, because if we go back to this fear piece, I know my fear piece, I know for me, my fear is, oh my gosh, there's not going to be enough for me, and this person's going to do this bad thing to me, or this bad thing is going to happen to me. Now, when I am in fear and I believe something bad is going to happen to me, what do? I self-protect. Why? It makes sense. In a fear-based reality, that's what we do. So it is learning to understand. And if we look at, I love reading my Bible, I love reading Bible stories, I love looking at the analogies that are there, and there are so many of them in the Bible that are pointing us towards how to live from love, not fear, how to make this shift. Because for me, the principles were one of these biggest shifts, because what the principle said to me is, it looks like life works this way, but it doesn't. It works the exact opposite. And this is the same. It looks as if I am fearful that this person is going to take something from me, what I have to do is self-protect. That is the worst thing we could ever do. The absolute worst. And you only have to turn on the news and listen to what's going on in the Middle East, whatever, watch families that are tearing each other apart, that are falling apart, that are not coming together. It is because we have misunderstood and believed it makes sense in a rational mind to do it that way. But the true way that it works, and again, if we look at how our brains work, so we have something at we have a primal part of our brain that is like our fear-based, like if you get into anxiety and these kinds of things, it's triggered, and this whole fight or flight, it's triggered from a very primal part of our brain. And certainly in the Western world, in our language, in the way that we are, We have been taught, and this is what I say about, you can talk about this in so many different ways, because we have been taught, I think it was Einstein that said something about the intellect makes a great servant, but our intuition is a gift from spirit, from God. We need to worship this gift and have the intellect as a servant. The way the whole of our Western world and this fear-based stuff is set up, run everything through your intellect first. If your intellect thinks it's a good idea, then use your intuition, your imagination, these beautiful gifts that we have been given from the divine. The way that we are designed to work is to bring it in through our imagination, through this part of our brain, to see it, to imagine what would it be like if we loved this person, if we connected with this person, if we did this, what would that be like? And then we take it to our intellect to work out the details of how we're going to do that. But we put it in our intellect first, and our intellect says, no, 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 absolutely not, no, 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 fear, fear, panic, no, 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 no. So it never happens. So we break off these connections. So just understanding that that is what we are doing, just seeing that, if we come back then to the thing that I read at the beginning, the lift yourself up, if we understand who we truly are, if we know what our God-given, God entity is, and each one of us will be different, every single one of us will have different gifts, different things that we bring, just like a body that has a million different cells that need to be doing different things. We need each one of us to be who we are. We need that. When we know that, when we show up with that knowing, and we use our imagination, we use the gifts that we have been given, and we connect with each other, not separate from each other. The word sin in the Bible means missing the mark, and what that actually means, it doesn't mean like a lot of the time we think of sin as, oh, you know, I did this terrible thing, I stole something from a shop, or I committed adultery, or I whatever it is. We think of sins as those kinds of things. A sin is missing the mark, and the way that we miss the mark is we misunderstand who we are, we misunderstand who other people are, and we misunderstand who God is. And through that misunderstanding, we commit the biggest sin that is possible for a human being to commit, and that is we disconnect. And once we have disconnected, we're in trouble. When we have started to come from fear, not love. And this was everything when I came across the principles, and it's kind of saying, no, this is the other way, this is the other way, this is the other way, works the other way. I had been in a very abusive relationship for over 20 years, and I heard some spiritual teachers talking like this whole, the way that I had been helped. I mean, people had saved my life, and I'm forever grateful. But what I was being told was I was a victim. I was basically being taught to separate, to self-protect and separate. And to stop abuse, we need to self-protect and separate. And then on my spiritual journey, and what the three principles, what I was hearing in that is, what if it's the other way? What if it's the other way? What if we more deeply connect instead of separating? And I know that can feel like a huge ask and a really, really, really big thing. To see it differently, to come at this from a different perspective. But a lot of the times, why a lot of the stories in the Bible are confusing to us is because that's exactly what they're pointing to. We are trying to make them make sense in a world that says, oh, self-protect if somebody does something bad to you. But if you look, like a few of the biggest things throughout the Bible are, do not be afraid, and that is, do not live in fear. don't be scared. There's nothing to be scared of. And I could easily go in more deeply to exactly why that is. There is nothing to be scared of. The biggest thing we fear is death. We were not born when we came out of our mother's womb, and we will not die when whatever it is that happens to us in this human realm happens. It's not, it's just a shift to somewhere else. So if we learn not to be afraid, and if you look at the story, one of the questions that I asked just a little while ago was, what's this whole big deal with Jesus? What is the, I don't get it. What's the big deal about Jesus? What is that? Everybody's like, the whole time when we were being brought up, my dad would say prayers and he would say, in Jesus' name, da 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 da. I go, what's the big deal about Jesus? Just don't get it. Don't know. And I was really answered on that one. And basically, Jesus died and came back to life to show us that when it was, what it was about our sins was to show us that separating and being fearful of death is the biggest sin that we can commit. And if we are not scared of it, if we stop minding, when you think about it, when we self-protect, why do we self-protect? Because we mind. It's like, you can't do this to me. You can't take this from me. You can't, don't kill me. Jesus is like, what's the big deal? It's nothing. Don't worry about it. Do not be afraid. And when we stop being afraid, when we stop living in fear in that way, and exactly the same way as when I came across the principle, I was like, are you kidding me, right? This is the opposite way around. I can make up something different. It'll be different. You're kidding me. I don't have to think that. Really? I've thought that my entire life, and now you're telling me I don't have to think it. This is exactly the same. It's pointing to the same thing. It's saying, you've made a mistake. You're thinking in this way and it is killing you. And you are self-protecting so that you don't die. And the self-protect, that's what's killing you. If you were not afraid, if you would truly look in this direction, if you would come back to love and connect, you will actually live while you're here being human. Because most of us are so afraid when we are in our human carnation that we don't live. We're just fearful. Absolutely, that was me. Just move from one fearful thing. How do I self-protect? How do I do this? How do I move from here to here to here? We are just terrified. And it's like, if you would not be afraid, if you would see this, if you would question it, if you would ask me, ask, seek, knock, ask. This is the whole connect with who you are. Go inside, talk. You have this power. Ask. If you ask me these questions, I'll answer. And God answers in so many different ways, so many ways. It's like, and I really, 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 really want to, I wanted to do this webinar to kind of just get a feel for, is there an interest to take this more deeply? Because there is really, really, really something that huge that is waking up in me, that is really seeing the absolute truth of this. And initially, it does take courage, which is one of, when you look again at the whole body, it's like, this is about community. This absolutely is about community. We don't do this alone. We stand together like this in groups and share with each other and hold each other. Like, we know each other. When I asked God about who I was really, really, really frightened even to share it with Beck. And yet when I did, she's kind of there going, duh, that is so you. That's who you've been your whole life. And it was like, there was no surprise there. But I was frightened. I was in fear about it. So this is definitely something we do together in community. We come together and we ask these questions and support each other in the answers to these questions, and support each other about living from love, not fear. Because again, if we come back to when I first came across the principles, I was not interested in something that wasn't going to be helpful, that wasn't practical on a Monday morning and a Friday night and a, Wednesday afternoon, just normal, ordinary stuff that I could access that was helpful and useful. And this for me is the same. If this isn't useful in everyday life, when our stuff comes up and hits us and you think, I'm scared, whether it's big or small, I'm scared. That's when we need to know to go in the other direction, to move towards love, not fear, to listen to what is being spoken inside us, to share that in community, to have our people go, absolutely, that's not your ego. That's something that God would say to you. Yes, follow that, do that, know that. And that's what I'm really, really seeing so clearly, which is, as I said in the blurb when I shared this, I was expecting big things from the love experiment. I wasn't quite expecting it to be this big in one sense, if you like. But I can see this is how we are going to change everything by changing ourselves, by looking in this direction, knowing ourselves more deeply, coming from that, and leaving behind that fear that makes us commit the real sin that we commit. And it's it's only a sin against ourselves. We disconnect. It's not, and it's, we get the choice. When you look at the parable of the sower, what that is talking about is this message, the principles, every spiritual message, the Bible, every spiritual teacher, all of them, all the religions, all of them are pointing to the same thing. This is a message for everyone. Are you interested? Do you want to hear it? And that is free will. That's what you have, the free will. You absolutely have the free will to say, nah, not for me. Perfect. That's absolutely fine. But it is a message for everyone. And those of us that, if you look in the story of Jesus with his disciples, I am aware of the time. If you look at Jesus with his disciples, basically his disciples became his disciples not because there was anything particular about those people, but when he spoke to huge crowds and had these cryptic messages, a lot of them were kind of like, yeah, I don't really know what he's talking about. Well, just about got time to get home for tea. Not interested. And somebody else was like, well, so yeah, that's quite interesting, isn't it? Yeah. After a week, it's like, yeah, this feels like, yeah, not really for me. And the reason that he spoke to the people he did was because they were the ones that stayed, and they were the ones that said, tell me more. You've kind of got me confused and I'm hearing something, but tell me more. And that was the ask, the knock, the seek. If you do that, if you have been awakened, if something in you is kind of saying, yeah, I want to know this because I know this is what's going to help me, then ask. Because if you ask, and it's not even, I mean, feel free to ask me, but I don't even necessarily mean ask me. Ask. Because if you ask, if you seek, if you knock, you will find answers to the things that you are frightened of, that bother you, that keep you awake at night. And this, a lot of the things I know I could, in our business, there are a lot of things that I know a lot of things about that I could do, that I could easily make money with. I can't do them. It won't come out of my mouth. It won't. It won't happen. When I get in front of people, I have to say what's true. That's what, this is not a great sell. There is a lot of things around in manifestation and all of those things. And I know a lot about those things and I could say a lot of things. This is a deeper truth. This is real. And it's like, certainly for me, in me. And I'm also a very, very, very skilled seamstress who can make wedding dresses, and you can make a lot of money out of making wedding dresses. I can't do it because I have to do this. This is who I am. This is what I do. So I was hoping that I would shut up a little bit sooner than this for some questions, but you may see I'm incredibly passionate about this. I'm totally and utterly open to, if anything has come up for you, if there have been any questions off the back of this, I'm totally up for you emailing those questions in. And I know we have some places where we're going next with this, but that's what was coming this evening. So.
Wow. Well, I don't know about everybody else on the call, but that was certainly powerful and impactful for me. I've had a little inspirational idea, Deb, which I'm going to run past you as soon as we come off this on a voice note. And I'm sure you're going to say yes or some version of yes. So we'll see you all really soon, because when Deb says yes to my idea, I'll let you know what it was, and you'll all be impacted. But that was beautiful. I just want to echo what Deb said. It's an open inbox. So yeah, if you want to ask any questions, or even, I'm sure Deb won't mind me saying this, pop on a 10-minute call with Deb to ask a question. That's fine too, because connection, I think, was the word of the evening. So we're not going to turn connection down. The replay should be with you tomorrow, and I think that just leaves us to say thank you very, very much for being with us this evening. It's been beautiful. You're welcome to unmute to kind of wave and say loves and goodbyes, and see you soon.
And as I said, if there are any questions at all, just fling them over and we will look at questions. So thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to your heart.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.